Hello and welcome to Cleveland Classic Cinema. Tonight's movie is 1973's The Gatling Gun, directed by Robert Gordon. This is a first in the illustrious history of Cleveland Classic Cinema. We're going to be showing a Western. I've got nothing in particular against Westerns. There are some real classics out there like The Magnificent Seven, El Dorado, Rio Bravo, The Searchers, and too many more to name. While I really enjoy the above movies, they're not in the public domain, so I have to try to find what you'd call some of the more offbeat movies. However, while I have nothing against Westerns, as I said, I don't have any particular love for them either. At present, however, I am in kind of a bind movie-wise, so I am pretty much forced to turn the barrel over instead of exploring the bottom. I have to feel around and see what's under it. This is the first one I pulled out. The Gatling Gun is, according to the liner notes, a fictional account of the creation of the Gatling gun in 1870, which is, of course, completely inaccurate. It was invented in 1861 and patented in 1862 by its inventor, Dr. Richard J. Gatling, and was one of the first continuous fire weapons. Gatling said he invented it as a way to reduce the number of men needed in armies and also to point out the futility of warfare. Whether or not he succeeded in his aims isn't even open to question. All the Army did was buy a bunch of them and use them to mow down whoever they were at war with. So much for good intentions. Besides, 23 years later, Sir Hiram Stevens Maxim invented the first true machine gun, which used the recoil of the gun itself to eject the spent shell and load the next one. Okay, enough history. I'm not sure how I feel about this movie. It's not in the so bad it's good category, nor is it in the horrendously awful category, as most of the movies we show are. It has its feet firmly planted in meh territory, so, it's not offensive enough to be entertaining, but at the same time, it's not exciting enough to be enjoyed on an action level. The plot concerns a number of cavalrymen attempting to first recover and then deliver the Gatling gun referred to in the title. Besides traitors in their midst, they also have a rather small gang of Apaches after them attempting to get the Gatling gun for themselves. This particular tribe speaks Spanish, which I find interesting since I had no idea Apache spoke that language. The traitor is a real quisling. The only thing he's concerned about is saving his own skin and getting a lot of gold in the bargain, hopefully taking the stepdaughter of the preacher he pulled the heist off with along with him. White preachers who look like John Carradine invariably have super hot Hispanic stepdaughters in movies like this begs looking into, in my opinion, but that's for another time. It does have the early 70s guilt tripping about the slaughter of the noble red man sprinkled through it, but to tell you the truth, if every Apache tribe fought like this Two Knives character fights, the West would have been won a lot sooner. The film contains all the, required cliches. The old settler with his handsome son and hot Ellie Mae-like daughter, the two-faced preacher's stepdaughter, the old preacher who wants not only to save the Apache tribe, but to convert them to Christianity, the no-nonsense lieutenant, the cook who just happens to be an expert on weaponry, and the equivalent of the red shirt in Star Trek, the miscellaneous cavalrymen that are there to get killed in sneak attacks. To its credit, the movie attempts to put a human face on the Indians, but it does so rather half-heartedly. The film also contains a good number of what I like to refer to as what-the-hell moments. Now, I don't know if it's the lousy quality of the print we got or if it was just really bad editing, but there are several moments and scenes in this movie where it leaps out of the scene you just watched to something that has nothing whatsoever to do with what came before it and offers no explanation for the jump. These are really rare things when you get right down to it. I mean, usually I'll find one of these once in any movie if I'm lucky, but this one has like 3 of them in it. There may be more than that, there may be more that snuck past me while I was gathering my senses from the previous one, and they're not limited to how the film was edited. There are a number of leaps in character that just come completely out of left field and blindside you while you sit and watch trying to figure out just what the hell is going on. Watch for them. They're one of the few entertaining things in this movie. Something else that kind of bothers me about this film is the fact that neither the cavalry or the Indians seem to understand the concept of cover, as in get behind them there rocks while we fight here type cover. I've never seen another movie where so many people get shot just because they're in the middle of an open space during a gunfight. I've never been in a gunfight, and here's hoping I never will, but if I ever am, you can bet I'll be tucking my big ass behind away with whatever's handy, and I can guarantee you it won't be an empty 55-gallon drum. I have never believed that those things are thick enough to stop a bullet, especially when you can go to just about any junkyard and see tons of them with bullet holes clean through them. Onto the bios. Guy Stockwell was born on November 16, 1934 in Hollywood, California. A reliable, if not noted actor, he appeared in 89 movies and television shows throughout his career, never quite attaining the fame of his younger brother Dean, but doing respectable work nonetheless. After his film career faded out, he acted on stage and taught acting classes at the University of California. He died from complications related to diabetes on February 6, 2002 in Prescott, Arizona. Robert Fuller was born Buddy Lee on July 29, 1933 in Troy, New York. The only child of professional dancers Robert and Betty Simpson, he started his career as a dancer and eventually moved on to acting. He appeared in 90 movies and television shows, being best remembered for his role as Jess Harper in the TV Western Laramie and as Dr. Kelly Brackett on Jack Webb's Emergency. Fuller was quite a popular actor, being handsome and very athletic. He started his career as a stuntman. He appeared in such films as 1953's Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, 1956's Friendly Persuasion, and 1957's The Brain from Planet Eris. After a few guest shots on Walker, Texas Ranger, he retired from acting and today is a co-presenter of the Festival of the West along with his lifelong friend James Drury. Woody Strode was born Woodrow Wilson Woolwine Strode on July 25, 1914 in Los Angeles, California. Standing an impressive 6'3", he was once described by Todd von Hoffman, one of the authors of the von Hoffman brothers' Big Damn Book of Sheer Manliness, as, quote, simply one of the most ridiculously perfect human specimens ever to walk the earth, unquote. Strode appeared in 93 movies and television shows over the course of his career, usually as a strong, soft-spoken type. His amazing physique did the speaking for him, apparently. He started out as a professional athlete, being one of the first men to break the color barrier in professional football. He played for the Los Angeles Rams starting in 1946. He was also a professional wrestler, competing against the likes of Gorgeous George in the 1950s. In fact, on the set of the unbelievably testosterone-fueled 1966 film The Professionals, Burt Lancaster, no slouch himself when it came to physicality, often challenged Strode to wrestling matches and was despondent when Strode continually bested him. Oddly, he posed for one of the two paintings Adolf Hitler had commissioned for the 1936 Olympic Games in Berlin, but I assume that was because of his impressive physical attributes. After playing football for the UCLA Bruins in the late 30s, he played several seasons for the Calgary Stampeders in the Canadian Football League before moving to Los Angeles to begin his film career. His first film was 1939's Stagecoach, directed by John Ford. Strode and Ford became best friends, and the former became a part of what was referred to as the John Ford Stock Company, a group of actors he used in just about every film he made. Strode always had a dignified air in the films he appeared in, his inner strength obvious in his performances. Among the many films he appeared in are 1960's Spartacus, 1962's The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, and 1968's Once Upon a Time in the West. His last film was Sam Raimi's 1995 Western The Quick and the Dead. Woody Strode died of lung cancer on December 31st, 1994 in Glendora, California. John Carradine was born Richmond Reed Carradine on February 5th, 1906 in New York City. He appeared in an incredible 409 movies and television shows over the course of his long career, late in life appearing mostly as mad scientists or geezers. Some of his films that note, to me at least, are 1933's The Invisible Man with Claude Rains, 1935's The Bride of Frankenstein, 1940's The Grapes of Wrath, 1944's Bluebeard, his favorite role, 1960's Sex Kittens Go to College, 1967's Hillbillies in a Haunted House, and 1968's The Astro Zombies, a truly awful, horrendous, boring, soul-crushing mess of a movie whose only reason to see it at all is that he co-stars with the ultimate woman, Tora Satana. Noted for his penchant to overact, he had vanity plates that read ham on his Mercedes. He once said, "I am a ham, and the ham in an actor is what makes him interesting." As far as I could find out, Carradine never turned down a role. It wasn't the money, although I'm sure that was a consideration. It was just that he loved acting. Carradine was a big drinker and often partied with W.C. Fields, John Barrymore, and many others. He was great friends with Barrymore, who once played a rather bawdy practical joke on him concerning a screen test. During San Francisco runs of the stage plays he appeared in, he always had a reserved seat for Barrymore put aside as a tribute to their friendship. Tennessee Williams wrote the part of Big Daddy in his play Cat on a Hot Tin Roof with Carradine in mind, but prior commitments prevented him from playing the role on Broadway. He was also part of the John Ford stock company along with Woody Strode. Of Ford, he once said, "Oh, Ford was a peculiar man. You had to know how to handle him. Actors were terrified of him because he liked to terrify them. He was a sadist." Married 4 times, he was the father to David, Keith, and Robert Carradine, all of whom went on to become noted actors. In his later life, he was afflicted with crippling arthritis, which turned his hands into gnarled claws, but he continued working nonetheless. When he died, his son David remembered, "We carted the coffin over to our house and opened it up. I looked down at him, and the undertaker had put this demonic artificial grin on his face, like nothing I had ever seen him do in real life except in a horror film. I reached out and, using the sculptural skills I had learned from him, remodeled his face to be more naturally like him. Then I poured half a bottle of J&B Scotch, his favorite, down his throat, and we had a wake." John Carradine died of natural causes on November 27, 1988, in Milan, Lombardy, Italy. His last words were, "Milan, what a beautiful place to die." Patrick Wayne was born Patrick John Morrison on July 15, 1939, in Los Angeles, California. The son of legendary actor John Wayne, he appeared in 146 films and television shows over the course of his career, his first screen appearance being an uncredited role in 1950's Rio Grande, directed by John Ford. He learned the ropes of acting appearing in a number of westerns his father starred in, then broke away and began appearing on his own in a number of films, notably appearing as Sinbad in 1977's Sinbad and the Eye of the Tiger. After the death of his older brother Michael in 2003, Wayne retired from acting and became chairman of the John Wayne Cancer Institute. The Gatling Gun is kind of a generic Western. You know, it has all the tropes audiences have come to expect from such films, and I suppose it presents them in a workmanlike, if not imaginative, way. After seeing this, though, I think it's going to be a while before you see another Western on this show. At the very least, it's better than seeing another rerun of the BC Yucca Flats. So right now, sit back, relax, and enjoy the Gatling Gun, right here on Cleveland Classic Cinema.